Mabuhay, this is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea, continuing this very important topic of trust. How long should it take for a Filipina to trust you? Well, she only knows what you tell her. She doesn't know your friends. She doesn't know your family. She only knows what you tell her about your past relationships. She isn't likely going to ask you what you've learned from the past, your past mistakes. In most cases for immigration, it's the Filipino who's making the daring move to fly so far away to a strange country with, by and large, a man that's relatively still a stranger in her life. By the way, please follow me here at Love Beyond the Sea. I always forget to say that because I just get right into talking about what I want you to know. Now, she has been forewarned. This woman that you're wanting to marry that's in the Philippines, and I suppose this goes for every other country too, she's forewarned about what could happen as far as mistreatment and what her options are for help. When my wife told me what the Conference for Filipinos overseas taught her, and that's something she has to do and get a sticker for her passport to prove that she took that conference. Initially, I was a little upset because it sounded like they were trying to kind of use some scare tactics and set us up to fail by, I don't know, putting a little distrust in her, talking about all the bad things that can happen and even what to do if it did. So I think when a woman is going from Philippines to America, Philippines to Canada, Philippines to Europe or wherever else, they have these conferences, classes, and they tell them, well, if he beats you, do this. If he's just not going to support you, do this. If he's abusive in this way, you got help here. And initially, man, I still remember thinking, gosh, what are they telling her there? I mean, she's talking like she never talked before. Well, I had to kind of earn her trust in a way, sort of all over again when she finally got here to be with me. If the man she is chatting with in messages and on camera refuses to stop chatting with other Filipinas now, she's not going to trust him. And eventually, unless she's the first one you've been talking to, like me, I had 4 or 5 others, you have to get around to dropping them. She doesn't want her foreign boyfriend talking with other Filipinas. That's not good for her trust. Filipinas, would you agree with me? I guess my wife was bold when she said she wanted both of us to only focus on each other, not entertain others. And if that's okay. It's just that I'd only been on the website for like 5 days. I won't tell you how much I paid, but I had to pay for the website. It's not cheap. Christian Filipina is what it was. But I ended up getting married real quick, something I couldn't do in the 30 years before then. So I wasn't complaining. And I wouldn't even have thought about, suggesting to her that perhaps, because I trust myself, I knew better than she did. And if we hit it off, I didn't see any reason to keep trying to connect with other Filipinas. I mean, I trust myself, but that doesn't mean that she's going to trust me. I told her when she talked about just focusing on each other, and she would hide her profile to other men, I told her I would do that for her, but I didn't do it right away. I had to think about this. After maybe a week or so, I told her that I messaged the other women I was chatting to on webcam, and I told them I was going to focus on Isa because that's what she wanted, and I also was having trouble deciding how to narrow down the process because I liked all of them. Well, frankly, since she said that so early, I really still wanted to chat with some others. And I told her that. I said, it's only been day 5. I just spent so much money on this dating site. And she said, oh, that's fine, but you won't be chatting with me. That is so Isa. And she hasn't changed. What she was doing, you could say, was testing me to see if I was going to be a player looking overseas for a woman or if I was truly ready to settle down and focus. Could she trust me? She wanted to separate the pretenders from the contenders right away. She hid her profile. I did not hide mine, but I only talked to her from that point on. And this was on Christian Filipina. I remember my number two said, well, thank you very much for telling me. In fact, they all were glad I told them because, they don't want to be strung along and they don't want to compete. They don't want to lose and finish second place for somebody. Just something to keep in mind. Now, things I did that helped her trust me. I assume my wife trusted me before we married, and she would say that she trusts me today, perhaps more fully, simply because it takes time to gain trust in someone. I've shown her that she can think of me as reliable, I sure hope. She can have confidence. She can feel safe with me, physically and emotionally. I reinforce that consistently by being gentle with her, with, non-sexual touch. It shows that I care for her emotionally, It makes a big difference to a Filipina to be able to talk about the future, too, with her husband. That's a big one. If nothing else, that assures her that he has a plan, which helps her to trust him. And of course, she'll want to know more about that future. I want her to know that I am very interested in our future, not just, what it means for me, but what it means for us if we got married. My wife doesn't tolerate a lot of numbers and can get frustrated when I talk to her about money for this, money for that, and, what we will need for the future, because she tends to still more or less focus on the present, but believe me, that's changing, and after 7 years in America, it should. But she gets the idea when I talk about our future and finances that I am in it for the long term, because I talk about the long term in practical terms. She can trust me more because when we were dating and married, all I could do was talk to her about our future. But since we have been married a while, 7 years, she has seen up close and personal that I am taking action, trying to give her the future that she wants and needs. If my wife had a degree of distrust, or maybe I should call it a lack of tangible proof of trust before we married, she surely knows it now. She probably has nothing to worry about. Something my wife revealed to me was that she felt better about us getting married after doing a Skype with my pastor. She offered to do the Skype. It was her idea. Kind of surprised me. My pastor came over at 6 a.m, probably on a Saturday, which would be evening in the Philippines, chatted with her for about 40 minutes, and he had never done anything like that before. I had to laugh remembering him telling her that she typed so fast. He was really excited, banging away on my keyboard. I can still remember that. He concluded by giving me his approval of her relationship, and this was important for her to trust me, because now it wasn't just me saying something. I could say anything after all, but it was somebody that was very important to me. And I said to my pastor, ask her whatever you want. I want this to work out. If there's a red flag, that shows up, I want to know. Ask my wife, or this woman that I was engaged to, ask her anything you want. And I'm sure I told her, ask Pastor Scott whatever you want. Pastor Scott had known me for 2 or 3 years. It doesn't take long to know me because I'm pretty wide open. And, it worked out well. And since we were going to get married in the Philippines, I wanted his blessing, and I wanted his opinion on anything that he could tell about this relationship, something he had not been exposed to before. I was the first one to have a very long distance relationship. And now actually I'm not the only one. Somebody else has done the same thing. This webcam with my pastor was a watershed moment for her and for us. She said after doing that, she was comfortable with me, a synonym for trust. I do try to earn her trust, whether it is a conscious effort or not. Perhaps she does the same for me. If I admit that trust takes time, that doesn't mean that all of that time should be before getting married. For us, most of it's going to be after marriage. I think it comes down to having a certain amount of comfort level with each other, and admitting, that sure, we don't really know much about each other. Just that what we talked about, what I thought was important. Please leave comments to ask as we near the end of this part. We've been talking about trust. It's a very, very big